Hello, everyone. Just a bit of correction. It's Kahihi Ventures. So I had planned about sharing 10-15 minutes on soft skills or future readiness or job ready skills. But after listening to all of you, I thought I'll share a bit of my journey first, my experience from running an edtech venture, where I kind of experienced both sides, students and teachers, and also parents and the ecosystem in general. And there are certain anecdotes in it. So we started a venture called as Padhyo in 2021. The idea was very simple, and I would be guilty of too many things which are mentioned here. We have done that. We reduced and simplified education to 60-second reels. So we used to call ourselves 60-second Edu Revolution. It was for K-12. The idea was very simple. Take an NCERT book or any book, divide everything to a concept. That they have already done it. I mean, the teachers have done a fantastic job by truncating it into chapters, to topics, to subtopics. We divided it even further to micro concepts. Every micro concept can be taught inside 60 seconds. The idea then was from our end to stitch it together. In such a way, based upon ML algorithms, we plan to stitch the entire strip of content in such a way that each learner can go through their own journey of understanding those concepts. It's basically stemmed from our own education, my personal experience. We studied from the best faculties, but during the exam time, it was always that friends would barge into our rooms and say, "Bhai, 2 minutes mein bata dena yaar, kaise karne ka hai?" There are multiple elements to it. There's one is pedagogical style. Everybody, 50 people sitting in one room will not have the same pedagogical understanding, or the same thing would not appeal. It is difficult for the teacher also to explain in multiple styles to different people. Also, if the goal is same, we still have different paths. When we were preparing for JEE, in physics specifically, there were 3 books, and all 3 had a different pedagogical style. One was Resnick and Halliday, a thick book, very nicely flowing content, a lot of pictures, lot of explanations. Then there was H.C. Verma, just to the point, great basic level explanation, and then it allowed you to think slightly on top of it. And then the third one was Erodov, which was Olympiad level questions. And no explanation, nothing, just questions, and then you have to give your answers on top of it. Now, the people who were interested in physics wanted to get into IIT, were inclined to one or the other book. It's not that they were they're fantasized or loving each of that book. There's only one. They got dedicated to one side of that book. So that's the inclination towards a pedagogy. So when we implemented it, our idea was that let's democratize and decentralize education. That means we don't control it. What we did was a platform, we just facilitated you to have micro concepts. Anybody can upload a 1-minute video, choose the topic, choose the micro concept, add to it, and submit it on the portal. It goes through an evaluation. There is a manual check, and then only it gets uploaded. On the other side, the students get to see the view, basically the content in form of a reel. And from that, they can learn. A couple of interesting observations, what we got out of it were, number one, apprehension of parents. Towards science, cool, क्या करेंगे, कैसे पैसे मिलेंगे, etc., etc. The reason for that, we felt after understanding that was, it's the education for a majority of the people is seen as a gateway to a stable life. How are you providing me that? For that, a parent is looking at an education or whatever we are providing in terms of only 3 lenses or 3 outcomes. Can you give me a job out? Can you get my kid a job after this? So are you making me job ready? Second, can you provide me some sort of boost ego, like social recognition, some format of it, like what White Hat Juniors or other people started doing, showcasing it largely and explaining it that, hey, this kid has learned these skills, auxiliary skills, which will help them eventually. And the third one is more marks, because that's still understanding in a majority of tier 1 and tier 2 cities, that more marks equals to excellence equals to job. And that's why the more marks is needed in the first place. Now, that is my segue, and again, I'll take an example from my alma mater, it's ISER. And somebody had mentioned, right, so there are only 20% of the people who are getting into the educational institute or the science institute thinking they want to become scientists or want to pursue into core sciences. I belong to the remaining 80%. We really didn't know. When we came in, we had inclination towards science, but we really didn't know what a career would look like. What are we looking at? I loved maths because I loved integration differentiation, which is 1 in 12th. When I went into second year of my college, we were working on algebraic topology, a completely remote subject, no numbers seen in it. And what is my career option? I really didn't know. And majority of the people don't know that. Now, at that moment, all of those 80 people, and that question is for the dais, and I'm digressing a bit from the core topic because it's a segue to it, is whom are we teaching? Science education. For whom are we evolving the science education? All this discussion is happening. Is it for the 10, 20% of the students who want to pursue science and go further into it? Or is it for the 80, 90 people who have landed into science education itself? We don't know that yet, but I will open to that. I would love to hear your opinions on it. There's also a very important factor which is happening after this, is that the landscape of the job is also changing. Engineering also, it's the same fate. It's just that science is seeing it earlier than a couple of branches of engineering. It's like who gets a civil engineering job nowadays? There's so many people who are unemployed after doing civil engineering or mechanical engineering if they want to stress upon, I want a core engineering job, core mechanical, core metallurgy job, whatever it is. Same thing. There are very limited options. In physical sciences also, lab works, doing research, going further beyond it, or else you apply these topics and move into something else. I'm coming from and this is the segue, so I'm coming into the topic which is called a job readiness and what are those skills. I'll give you an analogy here. Look at this glass. It's an experiment which was done by a faculty in, I think in some university in UK. He used to explain it about happiness. I'm just converting it, same concept, but applying it to the concept of education. Imagine this glass to be empty, and I start pouring pebbles in it. And I fill the pebbles till here. And I ask everyone, that is the glass full? Most of the time, the answer comes, yes, the glass is full. Then the scientist would pick sand. And it'll start pouring in between it. So between the gaps, the sand would percolate and settle down. Again, the question comes, is the glass full? Again, the answer is yes. And then he brings water and pours it in, and it fills it to the brim. So it's capacity for all the three things. Now, my interpretation of that experiment in the science is this. The pebbles or the large stones which you are putting in are the hard skills. The skills which we are teaching, the theoretical concepts in the basic sciences courses. That does not take you further into the job market. It's only even at the gates when 95% of the jobs are done after an HR interview, where personality or your HR skills are checked, your social skills are checked, you get to move further. But these stones, the larger ones, which we think, hey, the education is complete after providing these stones, or that much, the education is complete. It's not. There is the room for sand. The sand is drilling down the core stones into smaller and smaller elements, which can then be applied. So it's the problem-solving skills. It's the core concepts which can be taken, drilled down into concepts which can be applied into these job markets. Even after that, there is enough space, and that space is taken by the most fluidic thing. That's your character, that's your personality, those are your soft skills. So in my professional journey in the corporate sector, I worked across different continents, hired more than 100 people, fired more than 100 people. What exactly is needed to succeed? Marks? No, it does not take you further. It has happened a lot of times. You can ask so many people. The perception is a good alma mater, a good marks, good grades will take you further. It gives you an entry point. Yes, in some places. The market, the landscape is changing. We are looking for portfolios now. The grades don't matter. There are kids who are making, if they want to become a designer, they're putting things on Behance. There are people who want to become visual architects, they're putting it on Dribble. There are coders who want to put it on GitHub, Lit Codes. They're doing multiple other things. It can be done for the science institutes or science graduates also. You can make a portfolio, you can make your own website, you can put your experiments, your thought process, your thought of how a thermodynamics can be taught to other person in a reel, in a video on Google Drive. That's your thinking process. That's for the student. Those are the portfolios. And then what it takes is the work experience where you kind of require an amalgamation of soft skills. I'm highlighting soft skills here because it's, or the job readiness skills, because they are actually not taught to anyone even in the K-12, not even in the undergrads. There's no curriculum available for it. And even in the job markets, we try to do it at some or the other levels, but it's too late. By that time, half of the time, people are very much molded into the fact that, hey, this is how my perceptions are. People are not ready to break down those concepts and drill it further, or even about emotional intelligence or all. OK, so moving further, what are these skills? And I will try to summarize it in a way. There are a bunch of 3 buckets of skills. One is thinking skills, the second is emotional skills, and the last one is social skills. Thinking skills has, lower order thinking skills and higher order thinking skills. Higher order thinking skills kind of comprise about critical thinking, creativity. Amalgamating it would be problem solving. Emotional is all about awareness, which is internal, and external also, which is empathy. And then there are social skills, which is communication, collaboration, leadership, negotiation skills, all of these skills. Now, how does that apply to a science education per se? Because that allows people to transition into career for the 80-90%, even for the people who want to pursue them into core research. They would, at some or the other time, would be collaborating with people, would be working to enhance, work in fields which are very new. It's not about just the knowledge, right? So and I take the analogy of entrepreneurship from the corporate world. People are moving into startups. You don't know what's going to come ahead. There's a sea of unknown, and that's how you have to maneuver. How do you maneuver with just the skills which have been taught? You have to understand those skills, apply it in ways so that it can be applied there, and in that sense also have a certain set of skills handy with you to be able to maneuver through all that land of unknown. And those are your the emotional and the social skills. There are multiple steps to understand it, what we can do. This is my perspective towards it. Number one is, as teachers, as institutions, as parents, people should make it as a part of their conversations, at least, to make it. It's not like we need to have a separate soft skills or a job readiness course. It can be implemented in the curriculum itself. It can be implemented in the way we speak to the students. We need to sensitize students to think about when they are doing their everyday things. I have listed down a bunch of examples which we had seen from the faculties who created content on Padyo. And just to give those examples, right, there was a guy based out of Katna, somewhere in MP. They decided to, a teacher there in a KV school. He was teaching normally in his classrooms, but on the platform, he learned editing. He started editing Rohit Shetty's movies, Singham 2s, all of that, to explain Newton's first law, second law, third law to the kids. Very popular. There's an army housewife. Graduate, but because she is working, she's married to an army officer posted at a very remote location, cannot work in a standard job. She had a huge garden, so she used to go there, pluck out plants out of it, explain botany, leaf by leaf, all the parts of the flower, everything has been, she would explain that. Compared to a classroom where you have one teacher standing and 40 people, there is only one flower which is kind of explained. Here, the kids kind of see it on their mobiles. That's the creativity which these people are bringing into the education system to help people understand those concepts which could have been taught in multiple different ways in which a student can understand it. So what all we can do in adapting teaching styles to help nurture these skills, bunch of them I'm just listing it down a bit due to paucity of time. Number one is, and most of the people do it, it's impromptu write-up sessions or a presentation. Allowing kids to present it or do an impromptu session. So I explain it and I just pick some person, bring him on the stage and allow them to speak for 1 minute summarizing that concept is good for understanding the concept, good for explaining communication skills. Both go hand in hand. Capstone projects, somebody was mentioning about it. Great understanding for creating the idea. So has combination of critical thinking and creativity to be able to present a capstone project in entirety. There is something called as what's next in it. When we are dealing with uncertain situations, what next in it is you can provide a specific flow of logic to people, and at the end of it, you ask the students what's next in it, what would happen. Let's say deforestation is a classic concept which is working on, and 5 years down the line, what would be the scenario? Go ahead, research it, find it out for us. And then they have to present what next in it. Flow the chapter, pass the baton is a thing which I have seen in European education system. Finnish, particularly, they allow kids to stand, or undergrads also. They basically can multiple groups of 3, 4, whatever it is. So in an hour's time, 20 minutes given to each group, they will explain 1/3 of the chapter, 2/3 and 3/3. The chapter is never going to be explained again, but all 3 of them have to collaborate in such a way that there is a seamless flow because everybody is just learning from themselves. And there is an important one called as reflective journaling. It's an initiative done by a startup in Estonia, but it's a very interesting one. Can be implemented. I would love to see people doing it because it's very crucial. Reflective journaling is reflecting on your own learning style or learning what I have learned, what I know, what I don't know about any specific concept. It could be an optional exercise for all the students which faculties can provide so that it helps them build their some sort of a self-awareness, some sort of an emotional skill, because when they get into the markets, like my previous speaker was talking about, I don't want to do sales. I want to do core jobs. And there are other set of people who will come back and say, hey, I just want to do this, not these set of jobs. Not happening in the ecosystem. If you don't mold with the system, people are going to put you out of the system. And that's the brutal way. That's why people are getting fired. Most of these mundane jobs are getting taken by AI. I used to hire for business analysts, data analysts, a bunch of people. I used to take it from MSc. I used to take it from BTechs, MTechs. Yes, there was a preference towards BTechs and MTechs than BSc, MSc because there was one point which was mentioned and it was there. But there was one very important thing there. Now, all those dashboarding, all of those things can be done by one person sitting on AI, and 4 jobs have been killed. And that's the reality. So people will have to adapt, students will have to adapt, our science education will have to adapt in that sense. That's my brief take on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Anup. So any questions? We have room for 2 questions.
So what you're mentioning is you're saying start soft skills early, even in school, and then for undergraduate and master's students. What do you think is the role of a PhD in this sort of job ecosystem? Because most of the people who get a PhD don't go into academics. There aren't enough academic jobs. So what do you see? Because a lot of students who finish an MSc, they aim to do a PhD despite, sometimes they're interested in science for its own sake. Sometimes it's the next obvious step. I'd like to know what your view is and where that training, which is capstone of all science education, stands with respect to the skills that you think the market needs.
Yeah, and thanks for pointing that out. So I'll take an example of my co-founder in Padio. She did her PhD in neurobiology. Very important to understand those aspects, the thought process, everything is clear. But there was a very important anecdote which I would love to share. We were sitting with an investor, and she had PhD. So he asked, what's your experience? I said, yeah, leading businesses here and there in Europe, in Middle East and Canada. And then she asked her, the investor was also a woman. She asked my co-founder, and my co-founder said, it's PhD. I've trained in PhD. And says, okay, that's good. What's your work experience? That's how it came. It was a shocker for people who have studied from science. It was a shocker for her too. But that's the reality. People don't consider it. That's why, and this is a stat again. People who graduate out of IITs, IIT-B, IIT-M, IIT Delhi, top IITs, will get into McKinsey's and BCG's at a senior analyst level, just 2 years short of a senior associate role. An MBA grad would get into a senior associate role. A PhD, after finishing the 5-6 years, submitting the thesis based out of Ivy League colleges, will get into a senior associate role. They get it the same role. Because for markets, most of the people think that it's not applying into the sort of journey which they have to take. That's what the perception is. It needs to change, I completely agree, but that's what the reality is. And but having a PhD definitely helps. It gives you that sort of clarity, and you can take projects. Again, it allows you, and in a very nutshell, it would be critical thinking, creativity, and that problem solving. You have understood that. You have taken a problem out of nowhere and committed to it for 4 to 5 years, even more than that, and completely executed. You have shown the perseverance, you have shown the tenacity. All of those soft skills have been utilized. That's what makes you better at succeeding in the job market also. It's just that there are 2 elements which still need to be learned. And that's adaptability. If I've learned it in core sciences, I can do it in applied sciences too, or even in the job market. That's there. And the second one is acceptance. No matter what, that's the epitome of understanding that no matter what you do in your control, even if you've done your best of the efforts, you have to accept what it is and move ahead.